Good to see everybody this morning. We have a few out, and we pray that everything is going as well as it can be with those that are not able to be with us at this time. But we are, I go back to what Zane was saying. When we come together to worship God and to edify and encourage one another. And that's so important. And think about the time that when you come here and you've been having a bad week and you come around, brethren, and you're so uplifted. And that's why we're here, to serve God and to help one another. The reading this morning is from the Sermon on the Mount. And the lesson itself is not going to be taken from this section, but there's a couple of things in here that will kind of tie in with what I want to talk about. And we'll come back to that in just a moment. But go with me back to chapter 4 in Matthew, and look at the last two verses. It says, "The news about him spread throughout all Syria, and they brought to him all who were ill, those suffering with various diseases and pains, demonics, epileptics, paralytics, and he healed them. Large crowds followed him from Galilee and the Decapolis and Jerusalem and Judea and from beyond Jordan." Jesus is beginning his ministry here, and when he's talking to these people, these are not well-educated people. These are not government people. These are not people that have a great job. These are not people that have land and so forth. These are just common people, many of them suffering from so many of these diseases that they're brought to Jesus. In verse 1 of chapter 5, when Jesus saw the crowds, he went up on the mountain, and after he sat down, his disciples came to him. And he goes into the blessings. Blessed are the poor. Blessed are those who mourn, and so forth. We'll cover these at another time, but I want us to drop down to verse 13. "You are the salt of the earth. But if the salt has become tasteless, how can it be made salty again? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot by men. You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden. Nor does anyone light a lamp and put it under a bushel, under a basket, but on the lampstand, and it gives light to all those who are in the house. Let your light shine before men in such a way that they may see your good works and glorify your Father who is in heaven." We're not sure exactly where the Sermon on the Mount is situated, but most people think it's possibly the Horns of Hattin. And that would have been overlooking the Sea of Galilee at this time. And that's one reason verse 25 of the previous chapter is that it says the large crowds followed him from Galilee. Think about these people. Think about the suffering that they were going through. Think about the fact that they were nobodies, really. And Jesus speaks to them. And he says, you are the salt of the earth. Now, I don't know how many of you are on a diet, you don't take salt. But salt is one of those things that is really very important in our existence. Think about the benefits of salt. And we'll forget about the negativity of salt, okay? We're going to look at the benefits. But what is salt and what does it do? Let's suppose that I get a basket full of potatoes and then I pour it into a barrel of salt. What happens? Does that salt turn potatoey? No. No, it's still potatoes. Now, take that basket full of potatoes and sprinkle some salt on it, and what happens to the potatoes? Just a little bit of salt changes the taste of those potatoes. The potatoes didn't turn the salt, but the salt turns the potatoes. And when he says that you are the salt of the earth, I believe what he's saying is here, you are in a position to do a lot of good on the earth. The Great Commission. Jesus, and we normally go to Matthew, the 28th chapter, but I want to go to Mark, the 16th chapter, and look at what is said there in Mark chapter 16 and verse 15. Jesus says, go into all the world and preach the gospel to all creation. He who has believed and has been baptized shall be saved, but he who has disbelieved shall be condemned. Now, what did he say? He said, go into all the world and preach the gospel. When Jesus said this, it was roughly about AD 30. Paul, 30 years later in Colossians chapter 1, speaks about the fact that the gospel had gone into all the world. Now you think about that. It's not that it was as populated as it is today, but there were still millions of people that had to be reached. And what happened? Paul, Peter, the other apostles, all go out and they start teaching and trying to reach the world at that time. And all the sacrifices, all the suffering, all the issues that they ran into, they never gave up. And Paul could write 30 years later, the gospel has gone into all the world. You are the salt that does that. You are the salt of the earth. Now, what are some things about salt? Salt does have a healing capacity. When we understand that sometimes you put salt on a wound or sometimes you do this or that, it does help in the healing process. But let's think about how Jesus uses this. You are the salt of the earth. What were they facing? Well, the worst hadn't come yet. The worst was still coming from the Roman Empire. And the Romans, what would they do? They enjoyed persecuting Christians. They enjoyed going down to the Colosseum. And what would they do? They would put Christians out there in the middle, and then they would release these lions and other animals that would face these Christians. And they had no weapons to defend themselves. And it was an enjoyment to these people to watch them die from all of this. And that continued on for quite a while. Until Constantine. And he comes along and he puts an end to that. But what do you think they were doing? Despite all the suffering they were facing, despite all the hardships, they were still trying to spread the gospel. That's why they were arrested. That's why they were tormented. It was something that they were doing that was putting issues against the Romans and saying, you better change. You better not do this. And the Romans said, no, we're not going to let you take over. We're going to kill you. But they became the salt of the earth. And we must recognize the same thing today. Here we are in the year 2025. A long time and much has passed since the days of Christ. Since the days that Paul said the gospel had gone into all the world. And what are we doing? Do we just sit back and say, well, it's already gone into all the world? Or are we out trying to preach the gospel, teach the gospel to others? John mentioned the preachers that we support in India. I got word from a family over there that, well, we've helped them. We've helped the woman with some of her issues that she had, physical issues. And yet, I got a message that said, just in a town right near them, the Hindus had killed the preacher. That's still going on today. In all parts of the world, we can see terrible things happening when we go out and we preach and we teach the gospel. But what is the salt? If we're the salt, and it says just a little bit of salt. Okay, let me use this illustration. I love homemade ice cream. And I'll eat it all the time. But now, suppose I take a sprinkling of salt and I pour it in that ice cream. Is that going to taste good? No. That's going to make that ice cream taste terrible. And it won't take much of that salt to ruin that ice cream. And that's the way that we need to think about our life as salt. You are the salt of the earth. He's talking to people. We are the salt of the earth. We are the ones that go out and spread the word and teach the word and help the lost to hear and understand and give them the chance to obey. There are so many people around us, just right out here in this neighborhood, right down the street, up the highway a little ways, down the highway. We don't have to go very far to find people that need the gospel. And as Christians, we can have a healing effect upon them. That's what salt does. It has a healing effect. But also, salt is a preservative. How do you store meat? For many years, salt was used as the only way to store meat. We didn't have refrigerators. We didn't have all ways of keeping that meat fresh. But salt would preserve that meat, and it's still used that way today. Go back to Genesis 18 that we talked about this morning in class. What was Abraham facing? Sodom and Gomorrah. And, he was saying, Lord, if I find 50 people there, will you save it? Lord, if I find 40, if I find 30, if I find 20, if I find 10 people, will you save it? Where is Sodom and Gomorrah today? It's on the bottom of the Dead Sea. And many have tried to examine it and see what's happened to it. It was totally destroyed because not even 10 could be found faithful to God in that city. So when we think about the world and we think about our life as salt, we are preserving the world when we spread the gospel. Things change. Look at the United States. Look at how we have gone this way. We've gone strongly toward the Bible. We've gone strongly away from the Bible. We've had periods where we try to come back to the Bible and so forth. And then we go way off on the left. What is our responsibility? There is no way that God expects us to go out and reach, 350 million people in the United States? Something like that. Can you imagine knocking on doors of 350 million people? But if we go out and we save one, and we reach another, and we reach a few. Let me give you the example of the apple. If I take an apple off of a tree, and I cut it up and I take the seeds out of it, how many apples is that one apple going to produce? I don't know how many seeds are in an apple, but there's plenty. And that one apple will produce hundreds of apple trees, which produce hundreds and hundreds more apples. You see, the thing that we need to think about is not converting the world at this point. That's a goal. That's something we should, pray for. But our responsibility is to go one at a time and teach others. That way we help preserve. Irene Foy, this is back in the 60s, 70s. She was a widow in the Nashville, Tennessee area. And she would have young men come and stay with her who were going to college. And she would encourage and teach them and help them to realize that they could become preachers. They could go out and preach the gospel. And I don't know how many she was able to convince to do that. But preachers all over at that time knew who Irene Foy was, because her goal was to help young men go out and preach the gospel and spread the word. There was a young woman in northern Alabama, around Florence. She married a Christian, became a Christian herself. Had 4 boys. All 4 of them became preachers. Think about that. Think about what those 4 boys who grew into men and to preaching were able to do in spreading the gospel if they were doing what God wanted them to do. It's amazing to me what we can do in just one step at a time. You are the salt of the earth. If the salt has lost its flavor, what good is it? Throw it out here on the road. It's no good if it doesn't have that flavor. We've got to be careful that we are preserving the gospel and preserving mankind as far as we can by being the salt of the earth. But then he says, you are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden. It's been a couple of years, but we went up on South Mountain one evening, and we're there as it got dark, and we could see all of the lights of Phoenix coming on. From our viewpoint, we saw the whole city illuminated. Now, you go up in a spaceship. I know everybody wants to go up in a spaceship, right? We want to say, hey, I've been up, to Mars and all that. But I'm just kidding. But if you're up in a spaceship and you've seen pictures that have been taken, what do they show? You could see across the whole country, all the cities lit up by the lights that come on. A light illuminates, a light shines, a light helps you. If we are the light of the world, we're not able ourselves, when we think about it, to go out and find, this great light that's going to go up 100 feet and it's going to light up the whole city, is it? No. But we can. Each household has a light, and each room has a light, and when each household turns their light on, and all the households in the city turn their light on, the light expands and lights the way. And he's talking to us individually as Christians. We are the light of the world. And then what does he say? When he says, you are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden. Nor does anyone light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a lampstand, and it gives light to all who are in the house. Let your light shine before men in such a way that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. Go back to chapter 6 and verse 19 that John read. Go down to verse 22. The eye is the lamp of the body, so that if your eye is clear, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eye is bad, your whole body will be full of darkness. If then the light that is in you is darkness, how great is the darkness? If we put something over that light, if our light is not shining as it should, we are not illuminating the gospel. We're not sharing the truth of the gospel. We're not glorifying God as we should. And people, if they even notice us, they're going to see bad things, negative things. But when our light shines into the world, light up some others. We're going to help some others turn that light on and become the kind of person, the Christian that they should be, a light into the world. But think about that. What is the application that we need to think about? What can we do to be able to go into the world? We've got some cards, business cards. And I understand we can get hundreds more if we need them. But maybe one day, why don't we come together, say on a Saturday, and why don't we go down to one of the stores, or why don't we go somewhere in Maricopa, and why don't we hand out these cards to people? Why don't we talk to people? Why don't we be the light that they can see the gospel? Why don't we do something that we can help spread the gospel here? Shine our lights so others can see. There are other things that we could do too. There's no Chick-fil-A here. We need to have them build a Chick-fil-A. But we do have coffee shops. I love to go into a Chick-fil-A and sit down and have Bible studies. But there's coffee shops, and they're just as good. We can come together and invite people that come in to maybe sit down and talk to us. Now, I'm not saying that we just jump up and pull them over, but if you've got a little tag on the table that says, interested in a Bible study, stop by. You might get people, I don't know. But there's got to be some ways that we can reach out with the gospel and be that light that can shine so others can see. What else can we do? There are many, many other things. We've had recently a gospel meeting. We looked at putting ads out in the paper. We've done other things. But think about what we can do as a small congregation. And think about that apple. One apple can produce hundreds, thousands, literally, of apples. Because every time you plant that seed, there's going to be another apple tree that grows up. And how many apples will be on it? And every one of those apples has seeds and so forth. It spreads. Think about what we can do today as Christians and go out and spread the gospel. If 11 men or 12 men could go forth from Acts chapter 2, 3,000 baptized, a couple of chapters later it was 5,000, and it grew, and eventually to all the world. If 11 men could start doing that, and it spread like that, why can't we do something? Now, I know that they were given gifts from God that we don't receive, but that's okay. Because we have the greatest gift right here, the Word of God. Do we believe it? Do we want to share it with others? Do we want to be the light and the salt of the earth? To preserve and to heal and to shine the light to heaven. Think about it. Think about that. What can we do in our time, in our period of life? There's a 5-letter word that it all boils down to, and that is faith. Do we have enough faith that we can go out and spread the gospel? Do we have faith that God will give us contacts, that God will help us When we are scared, that God will give us courage. When we are weak, that God will give us strength. Do we have faith to carry out God's message and be the light to shine for others? Is there someone here this morning that is subject to the invitation? Won't you let it be known to the congregation here and come forward and let us be able to help you and encourage you and uplift you in any trials you may be going through.